Alright, in this video I want to talk about how to quickly find bias on your fabric in case you wanted to cut bias strips or something like that. In a previous video I talked about the 3 different types of fabric grains and how to find them and their importance. So this one will just be quickly on how to find bias on your fabric so you could cut, you can cut right on the bias or cut out bias strips or whatever you're trying to do. So here I have a piece of fabric folded in half. It's a piece of muslin. Alright. And I've torn both my edges at the top and bottom so that I know that my top is perfectly on cross grain and so is my bottom. And then here is my salvage. I'm just going to open this up. Okay. So here's my salvage, and you can tell it's a salvage because it's woven tighter than the rest of the fabric. You can actually see the squares of the mat below, or the grid of the mat below this fabric. Okay, but in the salvage it's woven so tightly that you can't. All right, again, the salvage is kind of where it's the edge of the fabric and where they tie your fabric off as they weave it so it doesn't fray. Okay, so at the bottom I've torn this, and I tore it, and it's right on a thread, and this will just continue to fray. Okay, your salvage won't. So just a quick reminder, your salvage runs on the length grain of the fabric, or runs parallel. Your length grain runs parallel to your salvage. And then the cross grain runs perpendicular, okay, at a 90-degree angle to your salvage. So now we know where those 2 grains are. All right, now we want to find the bias. The bias runs at a 45-degree angle through your fabric. So as long as you have a salvage, and you can tear your fabric like I did here. I tore it so it's perfectly on cross grain. All right. You can find your bias very easily. So what I'm going to do is on my salvage, so from this corner right here where I tore, let's bring this up. So from this corner right here where I tore my fabric, I'm going to measure up a certain distance and mark it. Okay. In this case, let's go ahead, and it doesn't matter what the distance is as long as it's equal, because we're going to measure up. Let's measure up 10 inches this way, and then we want to make sure we measure out the same distance on the cross grain as well. So I'll do 10 inches up and then 10 inches over. So let's go ahead and do that. So here is 10 inches. So I'm measuring right on salvage, measuring up from that torn edge at the cross grain, and I'm just going to mark it right on the edge like so. Okay, we're going to do the same thing on the cross grain now. So I'm measuring over from salvage along my cross grain 10 inches, and I'm going to mark it right there so it's marked. Okay, so both these marks are 10 inches out from that corner. Now what we want to do, okay, is we want to connect those 2 marks. So let's go ahead and mark them. Now if you're using nice fabric, you would obviously want to use chalk or something that's not going to stay permanent. I'm just marking this with pen on a piece of muslin. So here we go. All right. So now this should be perfectly at a 45-degree angle. Okay. And I can just cut that line. Let's go ahead and cut it. Like so. And now this is perfectly on bias. Okay, so say you wanted to cut a bias strip. We'll cut let's say a 2-inch bias strip. I can just measure 2 inches off that cut edge. This ruler is 2 inches wide, so it works out perfect. So let's put one edge of that ruler right against that cut edge and mark here. And then I can just cut right along that line. Let's move this out of the way. Now I have a nice 2-inch wide bias strip. Okay, and I could cut more of these, and if I wanted a really long one, I could keep cutting them, and I could just sew them together and create this nice long bias strip. Okay, so that's how you can find bias on your fabric very easily and quickly if you need to cut something like a bias strip or something. All right, so I hope that helps. Good luck on your projects.